This song is Exiled. It's an Edna St Vincent Millay poem that was set to music.
Searching my heart for its true sorrow, this is the thing I find to be. I am weary of words and people, sick of the city and wanting the sea, wanting a sticky, salty sweetness of the strong wind and shattered spray, wanting the loud sound and the soft sound of the big surf that breaks all day. Always before about my door.
I've loved Edna's poetry for several years. Edna St Vincent Millay, who we did the album of just 12 of her poems set to music, and initially, you know, probably about a year and a half ago, I started picking up my old book of Edna poems and reading through them and realizing that they just set so well to music. They had this cadence, almost in like iambic pentameter, you know, kind of nearly Shakespearean verse at times, that you could just sing. And so we would do these experiments where Doug would play on his little drum set and then I would just sing along, you know, almost in a kind of hip-hop music style, or just like something that's like very active, very rhythmic, that it inspired me to like pick up a guitar and start fitting some of the poems to music. So when we went into the studio, we had a handful of these Edna poems that we turned into songs, but then there was this secondary process of songwriting where we would experiment with stuff in the studio while we were live recording, and if it worked, then it might have made it onto the album. So when we worked on the album, we picked only poems that she wrote in sort of the early part of her career, so poems she wrote before she turned 30. So all poems she did before 1923, and the secondary reason for doing that is because all those poems are in the Creative Commons, so we can do whatever we want with them, which I highly encourage artists to do because there's so much gorgeous poetry.
About my dooryard, marking the reach of the winter sea, rooted in sand and dragging driftwood, straggled the purple wild sweet pea. Whoa, 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 whoa.
Absolutely. Edna St Vincent Millay was an early 20th century poet, also a songwriter and a playwright. She was openly queer and polyamorous in a time where that was a pretty radical thing. She was involved with the getting the vote for women. Yeah, she grew up in Maine with a single mom and her sisters, so it was just this household full of women, and it was she had kind of this wild childhood because her mother was always traveling. She was a nurse, and so these sisters, these three sisters, really grew up kind of raising themselves and caring for each other. There's this story about like the pipes bursting in their house, and while their mother was away, and the floor of the whole house froze over with ice, and so the sisters went ice skating through the whole house, because what else were you gonna do?
Whoa. Always before about my dooryard, marking the reach reach of the winter sea. Always I climbed the waves at morning, shook the sand from my shoes at night. Now that I'm caught between great buildings, stricken with noise, confused with light, if I could hear the green piles groaning under the windy wooden pier, see once again the bobbing barrows and the black sticks that fence the weirs, if I could see the weedy mussels crusting the wrecked and rotting hulls, hear once again the hungry crying overhead of the wheeling gull. So, you know, a very weird childhood, and was a prolific poet from a very young age, and then got some of her poems recognized, and she got a scholarship to go to New York for school. She went off to the city, which was this totally overwhelming experience, having grown up in rural Maine.
And she writes a lot about that. Yeah.
So the poem Exiled comes from that time period where she's in this big city for the first time and is just inundated with these new senses and smells and these huge buildings and an overwhelming number of people, and she's just having this heartache of like, this is so different from everything I've ever known. In so many of her poems there's this tension between this love of wilderness and also this desire to be in civilization, and these competing passions of like, how do I reckon with being a human in this quickly expanding world where there's so much technology and there's so many people, and how do I stay connected to my true self that really kind of wants to be in the garden and wants to be connected to the earth. There's a lot of teachings that Edna had for me as I was reading her poems and spending some time setting them to music around, like, what kind of environmentalist do I want to be? Of her sexuality and gender in a time where there was a lot of rules around what a woman should be and should look like and should do and should behave. Like, it's totally inspiring to see somebody 100 years ago struggling with these questions that are so real and alive right now. I just love that she was doing it 100 years ago and being so real about it. Feel once again the shanty straining under the turning of the tide. Fear once again the rising freshet. Hear the bell in the fog outside. I could be happy, that was happy every day on the